project management. And presentation today is to share some experience regarding our tender management sector. We are actually working since more than 10 years in this sector, both from general contractors, public authorities, and private investors. So sometimes we are consulting employers, and sometimes we are consulting general contractors. And we do this in Italy and also all over the world in many different important international tenders. So what I try to collect somehow in this presentation is some experience of tender management. So what are actually the key factors, how to manage the tender in right way from employer side or from general contractor side. What about pricing system? What about technical conditions to be met in order to get the points and to be awarded in the tender? But basically, let's say this, call it the general part with some principal type of contract and categories of tenders will be very important. And what I actually would like, and maybe it's the most interesting part of the presentation, is actually some case studies. So I'm bringing a few important experience. There is an audience hospital with 700 million of works amount, really important, that we are today about 65% then we have another Denmark hospital in Kohtumine, which is 230 million. Another very important tender that I will tell you for a few words about is main United Nations headquarters in Geneva, because they have their own rules, very complex, and the building is actually, it's a complex of 11 buildings existing that has to be ongoing and running. Meanwhile, you do the total refurbishment of this. And we did tender management, and we are doing corporate project management on this. And these tenders are different procedures, so they're actually pretty interesting. And then we will have also a few words on one of the latest that we won. It's European Investment Bank in the Luxembourg headquarters. All tenders over 200 million, just to have an idea about the importance. Then as far as we received the interest about, I tried to put some additional focus on BIM on model management on the end of the day, but actually the presentation started with talking about tender management. We collected some more information about that, but however, we can organize in future even some specific workshop on that with some of people from my big team. So this is just, let's say, a short overview about what are the contents of the today presentation. So let me start. This is, I'm not here to talk about us, but just information about my company. We are a pretty young company. We are now 11 years working, but we grew actually pretty far. We are fastest Italian growing company. We started, we were 2 of us in 2011. Today we are over 300 with turnover of 30 billion. And the services that we are providing basically are, first of all, integrated design, so architecture, electrical, mechanical, statical, all the disciplines together in the BIM and managed, of course, in the BIM platform. And then we have tender management services, which very often follow ups to the project management services. So we start with kind of consulting in the tender stage, sometimes for the general contractors and sometimes for the public authority or private investor, and then we follow up with this also during the construction stage. We were more or less 60% for public and 40% for private investor, just to have an idea about that. And then when we speak about tenders, usually we have, let's say, this double possible involvement. When we work for general contractors, usually the first question is, how can you help us to evaluate the tender price and conditions, and how can you help us to win the tender? So then, depending on which kind of procedure we have to deal with, sometimes you do value engineering, sometimes you concentrate the organization, the construction site, sometimes there are particular requirements regarding BIM. Sometimes the client wants to know how you will actually manage the process and how you will organize design or how you will organize construction, how you will guarantee health and safety conditions, how you can assure that what are you going to build will be useful for the maintenance and so on. So those are typical questions that are in the tender in order to find the right answers and so to somehow, let's say, help and consult the general contractors how to write the best possible solutions in order to win the tender and then to perform the work in the best possible way. On the other side, we basically have the same questions very often asked for the contract authorities. So, okay, I have to tender this, whatever it is, 200 million building, 1 billion road or whatever. What system I will use, how to select the contractors. Should I do the pre-qualification or you do kind of open procedure with some restrictions? What thresholds should we make? Then what kind of technical criteria we should put in this tender? What is the right balance between the importance of the price and the importance of the technical criteria? Because of course, if you put all the points on the technical criteria, you will get very nice things from a technical point of view. It probably will go out of the budget. If you stress it too much on the budget side, then probably you will get too low price, risking that may be for some reason then the general contractor will not be capable of doing that. And this is the work we do since more than 10 years, because we always, there is and I will make some example of this presentation. There are the great difference. Only small things in formula of, I don't know, calculation, economical score can change completely. Like the most easy and simple example could be you have some formulas that they have like a discount, maximum discount of competition divided between the discount of the single tenderer. Others are price divided the price, and the percentages that are coming out are completely different. So those are some really tiny and little things that can then drive tender in good direction or in the bad one. And so we are working a lot of this consulting. We have also the legal part of consulting, but only in Italy. We are not, let's say, not organized to do the legal kind of consulting out of Italy.
Can I have a question?
Yes.
When you consult the scoping of tender, preparing the tender, can you then afterwards participate in this tender?
Absolutely not. This is something that you can do this consulting with this one, but never for the same tender, of course. No, this is the direct conflict of interest. So if you have any kind of involvement with contract authority, we are not participating with the general contractors, or opposite. If we were at least maybe there are some procedures where even this is allowed, and usually those are called early involvement procedure, when everything is open. Like Turkey procedure, when the contractor is even involved in very first conceptual design, but then it is clearly written in the procedure. Normally, if you are on the one side, you cannot be on the other one, of course. Well, here I just listed let's say some of commonly used procedures, like from open, normally for the simple tenders where everyone can participate, and with some thresholds and some restricted procedure. Competitive and negotiated, where people who are, let's say, pre-selected can then, after the tenders, can they after compete with the tender procedure. One very commonly used, maybe even mostly, is a competitive dialogue procedure, where actually the tenderer asks somehow to give their contribution to the involving to the development of the tender procedure itself, and I will show you some examples of this, and then some particular procedure like innovation partnership and designers and design context. We have Europe, of course, every country then has its own law, but as for European directives, we have thresholds for let's say obligation of engaging to not only lowest price tender, which is 140,000 euro for the design tenders and 5.3 million for the building tenders. So when we have to deal with the tender is higher than this, then the price cannot be the only criteria. So we need to have some technical criteria and some prices, and of course there are different technologies that are normally regulated in the contracts with different important chapters and articles that have to be inside. As per, let's say, if you are looking on particularly on the way of how design is managed, then we will have some different tender procedure. The first one is, let's say, it's classic only build procedure. So it means that owner or employer is engaging an architect or designer to develop the design, and only when the design is over with the stage, then contractor is engaged. So it has some, of course, advantages because you start working and dealing with the contractor when you have everything settled on the table, build of quantity is done, finalized, and so on. But actually, let's say the problem of this procedure is basically timing, because you don't have the possibility to manage an overlapping between design and construction time, and therefore design and build procedure is commonly becomes very, let's say, always more and more often, because the structure of this procedure is that the owner once developed the preliminary design or some advanced stage of preliminary design, then there is a tender in the middle, and so the general contractor, which becomes design and build contractor, is involved also for the main design. And basically, disadvantage is the risk that you start tender when the design is not still finalized yet. The main advantage is that it's a way of putting risks on the, let's say, passing the part of the risks on the contractor as for design and build. And of course, there is a time saving because the final design did by general contractors and contractors are partially overlapped. Then further, we are going to the Turkey one, when the involvement of the general contractor is even higher, since from the concept stage. So we are talking about the employer and contractor sitting on the same side of the table, and very often this contracts involves also the financements, and they involve also the maintenance and so on. And there is a construction manager risk, very particular procedure. United Nations use this when you actually owner actually engage his own designer for developing the own design stages, so preliminary and design. But on the same side, he wants the contractor on the table in the phase of finalization of the main design. So, and this is actually really good procedure. That the period that is called pre-construction period is born. So it means that there will be some periods where the general contractor and designer are finalizing design together with the procurement, when one important parameter which is called the guaranteed maximum price is finalized, and the United Nations building is standard that way. So I will tell you something more about this in few next slide. So those are just like different kinds of contract as per the scope of the work. So there are keys that are starting with early involvement, and the APC that can be designed and built or already built, and then we have the mix of both of them, and services contract. And also as a type of remuneration, we have lump sum contracts, we have open book contracts, so based on the bill of quantity possible. We have the maximum guaranteed price with the bonus system, how much we can save together. I'm talking about the general contractor and lower from this. And of course, mixing different kind of scope of works, a different remuneration, you get different typology of the contract. Of course, those are not all possible typology. There are only let's say the most common use. And usually for each of them, of course, we have let's say international and national laws and regulations. But then you have different institutions, for example, like RIBA, JCT, ICE, and FIDIC. Maybe most common use is the FIDIC, that are actually giving kind of guidelines how those contracts are usually managed. So for the let's say for the simply straightforward contract without design inside, usually the typically used guideline is FIDIC Green Book. Then once the contracts are becoming more complex, depending if designer is on employer or not. So if it is on employer, then the contracts are basically only built contract without design, and they are regulated by FIDIC Red Book. And then if there are design and build contract, if there is no maintenance, usually the guideline is FIDIC Yellow Book, and with the maintenance, so design and build contract with the maintenance are regulated with the Gold Book. And then we have Turkey project with the Silver Book. So those are let's say the typical. Those guidelines are easily available. You can buy, they're not even so expensive, but actually those are like typical contracts. So all the terms and conditions could be found there, so it's pretty interesting to read it and to study. So this was just, let's say, a really short introduction, and so now I try to, I don't know, extract the most interesting thing for different procedure, just, you know, to put it on the table and to share this experience with you.
Sorry, I have a question. Do you have any experience also with IPD or alliance type of contracts? Integrated project delivery used in America, also in Finland, more in Australia?
No. Like with this, you think design and build, or?
No, it actually goes beyond what was the contractor or general contractor risk.
Together with the maintenance after?
Yeah, it can be together. It's like you bring the whole team together at the very start of the preliminary design, even actually.
Yeah.
You have the designer, contractor, client, and the user already involved.
Well, under this single IPD, I never worked actually in the United States, so I don't know. But some of those contracts, for example, this one was as a typology early involvement contract. Even if it was not involvement in the conceptual stage, it was competitive dialogue, but with the stage of 7 months predicted to work together in order to start the proper contract. So actually, when the tender was awarded, the final contract was not signed, but it was signed the pre-contract with the clause that it can be cancelled after 7 months if you don't reach the goal. Of course, paying some expenses, covering some expenses during this period. So it is probably what you are talking about, even if I never worked under this specific term that you use.
With IPD, there's actually just one contract between all the parties. The client doesn't sign several contracts between the designer, the contractor.
So it's what we call in Europe Turkey.
Okay.
Because it's, for example, as far as you explain me here, it's a single entity or contractor, so one owner that under single contract complete all the stages, so from the basic design to detail engineering, and very often there is also financing, procurement, and also maintenance under this one.
It's not exactly the same, because it's actually, you don't hire a contractor and the contractor manages everything, but you put together a team, a project team. So essentially it's like a...
Okay, they work together, coordinated by you, but there is no single entity who...
Yeah, it's everything is shared, open book, etc. So I would say it's more like the construction manager at risk,
like the one.
But going maybe even further than that.
For example, this one in the United States, it was open book, but still the client was paying a general contractor, but for each and any item that was supposed to be delivered, they were supposed to get at least 3 offers on the table. It was, since the tender stage, you quantify what are your general expenses, overheads, markup, and so on. And so then, together on the table, you, general contractor, together with your designers, which is us in this specific case, advise the client, in our opinion, which one is the best compared price quality offer, and then the final choice is there, and you simply put your markup on that. But it's actually open book system. However, managed by contractor, and the contractor is the one who gets directly paid, so it's not the owner paying every single subcontractor. So maybe legally is different, but operatively is probably very similar to that one. But even if, let's say, manage other different procedure, actually the concept of open book, let's say, of opening and the cooperative spirit between the contractor and is always more present, especially in Central and North Europe. For example, in Italy, it's still not like this. In Italy, usually you do this, it's called offerta economicamente più vantaggiosa. It means best balance between quality and price. Okay, and usually you have some points for the price, so more discount you do, more points you get. And then you have some points about this project that is called project of the design improvement. So it means that you get the design on the beginning of your tender. in the tender documentation, it is listed what kind of specific aspects you want to improve. I want to improve the energy performance of the facade, or I want to implement more renewable energy resources, or I want to have the maintenance, easy maintenance finishes, or I want to have efficient, energy efficiency lighting, or something like that. Each of these facts, 10 points, 12 points, 8 points, so on. And so basically the general contractor comes to the contract, usually engaging designer, advisor, consultant, whatever, to find the best solution that will somehow meet those criteria without increasing costs so much. So normally what happens, unfortunately, because this is Italy, I'm on the same side proud and sometimes ashamed about the rules. They call it in the tender. It's art of adding, you get this, you get that, you get also this and here and there and then. And then once the contract is signed, it is art of cutting, like, yes, but it was not actually, because, you can offer, I don't know, very efficient lighting, but you say, yes, but I offer it only in these 2 rooms, not in all 200 rooms. And then they start fighting, because it was, then it's about the wording and so on. Differently in Scandinavia, we worked a lot in Denmark, we worked a lot in Germany, we worked a lot in Switzerland, and now also in Estonia. The philosophy is completely different. Normally it starts by building trust. Okay, you are the general contractor, you're an experienced designer. How can you help us? We are here to listen to you, and then it's really completely different the philosophy. And I first time actually experienced it in really big contract, in this largest contract, which we won on the 2017. And then I was by many Italian experience was so now what we do? No, actually we were sitting in this round table and we were proposing different kind of solutions, and for each of those solutions that there was a price, and sometimes client was going for the cheapest one. Sometimes they were going for the most, intermediate one, or even the most expensive one, because that is what they want. And they simply put it, they do not expect the contractor to give this as a gift. And so everything becomes, more open. And actually, the cooperation was, and it still is fantastic. We worked almost 20 people. Kadi was with us like 1 month ago with the Estonian delegation from Tallinn Hospital there in the construction site. And we are all this complex, which is almost 1 billion, actually, it was done by 4 different tenders, and we won all 4 of them. So they're really happy with us, and they're awarding one after other to this. And we are almost there. There is 1 more year missing for the handover of this hospital.
What type of tender is this?
This one was a competitive dialogue, design and build, with a pre-concept designed by others, by somebody who was engaged in previous. It was kind of, let's say, preliminary medical planning concept, like urbanistic. And then we get that, and then I will show you in the next slides. But the procedure was who wins the contract. It was 9 months of contracting, proposing the solutions, and it was really interesting because they were getting the solutions for different contractors and sharing it with others. So to imagine, it was really open competitive dialogue. But then once they chosen us, we signed the so-called pre-contract and then entered the so-called optimization stage. Because the problem was that initially this was 610 million contract, and according to the preliminary estimation, it was needed 650 million. So the goal is, okay, you're the skilled designer, you're a general contractor, how can you come here with optimization solutions? So I have to save my 40 million. It was about 7.58% of global budget to fit in the budget, but I don't want to compromise the quality. So everything was about that. So during the tender stage, we were working on this kind of proposal, and we were getting some points whether our proposal were nice, technically structured or not. And also it's something that was called methodology approach. So how we manage design, how we manage communication with the client, how we manage the works, and so on. And the third part of the points was actually the CV and experience and track record of the constructor of the design. Those were the technical points. And then there was an economical point. Who win the tender? He basically keeps doing this but now investing much more effort because he's somehow on the board, even if the final contract is not signed. So, okay, you put me in the table in the tender stage, some idea how I want to do. It seemed that you were better than him, so I decided to go with you. Still, you didn't reach your goal. I give you 7 months to reach it and then we sign a contract. Otherwise, I pay you 10 million for your expenses and bye-bye. This was the concept. Let's say, said in simple words, of course, there are hundreds, thousands of papers of the contract regulating that, but basically this was how the procedure was done. And so, coming back on the tender stage, which was in early 2007, end of 2016, 2017, this was what was on the table. So, economical part was about 20%, and there was process and methods, it's organization and stuff. And in this process and method, there were processes and also optimization, so value engineering, let's say, the ideas how to meet the goals. Just to have you an overview, we are talking about over 250,000 square meters. This main building is called the Knowledge Axis, which is actually, this is University Hospital, so this building is then connected with the existing university complex. There is a sky bridge under here connecting it. And there is another sky bridge of 70 meters long connecting this with the hill pad on this part. So it's actually the biggest hospital in Denmark and maybe the third biggest in Europe. So it's very, very big, and total investment together with the infrastructure, the landscape part is over 1 billion euro. So the main questions that actually the tenderers were asked, I forget that. Before starting of competitive dialogue, there was a pre-qualification procedure. We started as 7 companies, then one is eliminated, and then we were 6. 2 of them Danish, 1 in Norway, 1 Spain, 1 Turkish, and 1 Italian. And we were participating together with a joint venture of 2 Italian companies, CMP and Itinera, more or less a little bit less than 1 billion each of turnover. And so they were asking when, how, when. So tell me about value engineering, tell me how you will manage the design phase, tell me how you will manage execution. So in terms of actually procedures, in terms of organizations, in terms of methodology. Actually, Danes are really fixed with methodology. They really want you to plan every meeting, every day. It's really very important. It's a pretty different philosophy. I learned this for the first time there. I like it actually, but it was pretty strange for me on the beginning. So why you ask me when we have to meet after 1 year? You know, let's see what we are going to do next week. It was like this. No, I want to know because I need to plan my vacation in July 2024. It was like this. And then, points for the track record and the CVs of all the people that are involved, and cooperation model. So actually, still methodology, how we will cooperate. And you will see now some slides about that. And then, of course, the relation about price, which was also really pretty interesting. I will show you something. So we started with a model like this. We said, they were asking us, okay, how you will, we have only these concepts. We don't have even the structural scheme and the pillars design. We don't have windows, we don't have doors. We only know that this is supposed to be 650 million, and we know that we have 610 in the budget. So what we do, basically, that was more or less the story. And then, and then we started explaining our idea of how we will manage this project. So we will analyze the documentation, we will make the preliminary report about that. Then we will go with our, we call it checklist of different items that, in our opinion, could be optimized. But still, you know, the problem with value engineering is always one. It's not so massive work if you do it once, but it becomes massive if every item you do 12 times. So you have to be very skilled to find a way to say, okay, I'm thinking about optimizing the structural system from the cast in situ to the prefabricated one, writing only one line. Then asking, are you interested to know something more about that? Then they say yes, check it. Then you do the second step. And you say, do you like this second step with some development? Yes. And then third step, you do the bill of quantities before, after, design and everything. So to limit it to do too much work before you get approval. So it's always about having a good cooperation and having a good dialogue with your client to not overwork too much without having the feedback if this is good or not. And this is it's hell difficult job. It's like more than 30% of effort in terms of time in the complex design concept. It goes to communication, to presentation, to design management, to explaining choices to the client, getting feedbacks, implementing feedbacks, and so on. If it was one shot, it would be like half of the time we finish. So we made this preliminary approach, we get first feedback. Sometimes we made 100 things, they say, go and develop this 70, but this 30, I'm not interested, because I know that this one, users don't want to change it. They want it like this, so keep it like this. Very good. I don't work on that, I work on other things. Then I go for the project optimization development. We submit in the first step, get the file feedback. Once the feedback is positive, we go for the second step, so further development. So for example, on the beginning you say the savings will be low, medium, high, nothing more. When they like the proposal and see that the savings are medium, next time they ask you how much, and then you do, so you have to do the more work on that. Client feedback, and then this one, you go to the different meetings and checks to do the final economic evaluation, and then implemented the project, submitted, and go for validation. And that was the process that was, well, it was much longer than this one, of course. It was like 50 slides only about the process, but this is the one that maybe summarized best, I think. Then when we go to these scorecards, for example, one of the proposals, in the initial solution, there was a design manual stating that all the facets will be cast in situ, really long and expensive, so we find a way to propose the cellular system facet, which was prefabricated, so much faster to do. Then we do also some optimization in terms of actually form Windows position. They were, and this is, for example, coming back to classification system. Codification in BIM models is sometimes really useful for quality check. For example, first time we modeled it as it was, then you see that you have, I don't know, 2,346 different typologies of windows, because they are different for 5 centimeters, 3 centimeters, and say, no guys, this has to be rationalized, it cannot be like this. For example, the codification of the models is very useful to see how many different items you can integrate the model, and to see how many different items you have of typology, and then you start thinking how can you optimize this. And we find really many problems on this. So this was one proposal, one accepted. The same was with the structure. Most of them was cast in situ, basically because in some preliminary meeting, somebody of users, which is true in hospitals, that you actually work better in the after stage with the cast in situ slab, because when you need to attach something about medical equipment, you can do it wherever. But when you are when you work with the prefabricated slabs, then you cannot go and attach yourself everywhere. Probably you will need some metallic structure under there and so on. But basically we said, okay guys, let's go and see how many rooms are actually the hot hospital. So I'm talking about operating theaters, intensive care, and this kind of room where really you have, I don't know, bariatric patients rooms. And we made our analysis that these are 14,000 square meters out of 250. And we say, okay, let's go for prefabricated slabs for all the rest and do the cast in situ only for the 14,000. Accepted. Stupid example. But those are things that really change, because manpower is very expensive in Denmark, and we were passing for 130 euro for a square meters of cast in situ slab to 72 euro for the square meters of precasted slab. Multiply it with 230,000 square meters, and you get a lot of money. And this money is then set, and there is an incentive method. Then while you're saving up to the target budget, this is a saving in order you to sign the contract. If you manage to make additional saving, there is an incentive method. In this case, it was, as far as I remember, 60% to the employer and 40% to general contractor. So if you make additional savings, there is incentive method. So part of this money is going to, which is also fair, and it is written in the contracts in the first moment. Another thing is about heating and cooling system, which was for the heating part. For the heating part, it was a radiant ceiling, and at the same time we had for the cooling the fan coil system. So we have a double system for heating and cooling. And what we propose actually are cool beams. So only one system that are doing both hot and cold, and actually also this one saved a lot of money. Also lowering the thermal inertia because it was faster to put the room in the temperature, whatever temperature you want. Then, for example, there was some rooms were with double bed and with a double bed head unit, and then we were saying, okay, let's see put the bed head unit, the double one, but the single one with the double sockets on the left and the right side, and also if you multiply this with whatever 500 bed head units, this will be a good saving. This one is interesting because it was actually about BIM, and since the first moment from the tender stage, they want to see that all the elements will be mapped with the timing of when they are going to be built, that they have to be mapped with the price. On each monthly report, we are now on 42 monthly report, we have to provide all the documentation, visual documentation of what was built with the map element inside there. And actually we show them, I don't know if I can, how can I put the video from here?
If this is this computer,
Yes.
then I can start it from here.
Ah, okay.
Yes.
Fine, thank you very much.
Security page. We allow.
Should be on the Oh, it's really a short video, but just to show you. So we tried to do them. You can make it larger here.
Scroll down.
That's an aspect that I told you before. This was the protected dialogue, so we can first take the timeline schedule. We mapped every element with the timing when this will be built. We mapped it together with the cost and also the manpower needed to put it in the place. So you really had like this zone of ceiling. You know that it will be built in the March 2023, and that there will be 12 workers doing that. And therefore, we calculate from there. The software calculates automatically. And this is the animation that is done in Baxter Manager. Month by month, the manpower. This is the global progress during the different months of the construction site. And they actually really like that because we consider, we and the construction company that they also met in Odense, we consider ourselves the most skilled, let's say, BIM 4 and 5D designer in Italy, and they are most skilled actually construction company. So we showed a lot of these things, and they actually like it, and this allows us to get more points and to get hours of this standard. And still, actually, we are still using all this system during the construction stage in the audience, and we are now on like almost 70% of global progress.
So 4D and 5D are tracked in Pexel Manager, right?
Yeah. And actually, we use many software. We work with the Dynamo, we work with Navisworks, we work with Solibri. And now, if people from my BIM team could continue the list, I'm not so in deep of this. But actually, we really find ourselves much faster in Pexel Manager. Because we know that company, because this company is born in Serbia, they then became an American company. And they were like software guys. They were not doing this type of work, they were just programming software, how to say. And they were actually working, generating the plugins for Autodesk. Autodesk was a client for them. And the good thing it started because some of people in this company, and also our general director of the Serbian office, which is my best friend and also connected somewhere here, he was a technical director of this company since 10 years, and they actually were working like on the same table with the designer and with the general contractor. So, you know, making adjusting the things how it is actually need according to the designer needs to make it more flexible. And from that point of view, we started using it, and since 4 and 5 years, we are basically using most of this software. So I strongly advise it, and if you're really interested in it, we can really consider, because it could not be managed in 2 hours lesson. But if you're really considering this, I can organize somebody more skilled than me, like with open the models, and then to make a proper workshop, like, I don't know, whole day or half of day, or on getting into the models and do something. Or maybe we can even do it online. Let's think about that. But for us, we are available, no problem. No problem from this. This is one of my invented special effects. Because one of the topics, it was 5 points, I remember very well. One of the topics was, okay, please explain us how you will manage the dialogue with users, how you will explain users when the parts of hospital that they are going to work will be finished. Like when I say user, I am talking about doctors, nurses, medical directors, and so on, which are basically client of our client. So, you know, the boss of the boss, they're final users, so we have to make them happy. And this was the nice thing. Actually, the photo that you're looking in, it was a model, large like this. It was like half of this table, very big, high like this, with 85 lighting resources under it, which I bring, and I call it a chrono model, because we printed the timeline schedule, the building, divided by different pieces of building, because final finishes are delivered in different stages. And basically we had in this model this 8 bottoms for the, how you say it in English? Yes, push bottoms for 8 different handover delivery of stage parts of the hospital. And then, for example, when doctor who is working as chief of cardiology department is coming, you say, okay, there was a guide. It was written cardiology, I don't know, green. It was the button, and then he say, see where is his part, and then here that it will be delivered in February 2024. So they were coming there and seeing this model, and because you know, I'm usually telling this when I'm talking with the people in my company. You have 4 different levels. This is a story that doesn't have anything to do with the tender, but I want to tell you this small anecdote. You have 4 levels of cooperators. The one that you tell them do this, and they do less than what you told them. The second one, which many people think that are the highest one, you tell them do this, and they do exactly what you told them. The third one, when you tell them do this, and they do more, they do everything that you told them and something more. And the fourth one, which is the best one, you don't have anything to tell them, they just do. And actually, the people make this mistake. You always can do more, and this is, for example, this spirit of initiative is not so common in Scandinavia, at least in Denmark where we're working. They stick to the book. They are much more precise. They are much more organized. I'm comparing with let's say South European world, with Italy, with Spain. But if you have to do something more, usually they will not move too much. So actually, this can be occasion if you take a win-win. You know, you have to, in my opinion, the best compromise is take the Scandinavian organization and planning and everything, and then put some people of those that you will tell them do this, and they do more. And so this was, you know, a small expression exactly of this idea, because usually when they ask you, you are participating to the tender, and they ask you, how can you cooperate? You can reply in many different ways. Usually, normal reply is, okay, whenever they call me meeting, I come in the meeting and explain to doctors when they are delivering. One sentence written in one paper, nobody reads it, and you get 1 point out of 5. The second level is, I go to the meeting, speak to the doctors, and then I bring some photos because I installed the free telecameras in the construction site so they can see the progress. Very nice, but still, it's the second level. You know, it's typical. You know, everybody knows that this kind of construction site, you know, will have 10 telecameras around it, taking it. Okay. Third level. Okay, I will go speak to the doctors, show some photos of telecameras, and also make a website on this with some time-lapse videos. And, you know, for example, we have our movie maker every 6 months in the construction site making a video about that. Normal procedure. Okay, already better. And then you have this, the model, and then they can see and touch it. And so it's always possible to do more. And actually, this context is very nice because they have this Scandinavian friendly approach, which I basically see quite also here in Estonia, even if I'm still new. They want to bring you on the same side of the table and say, how can we do this best way? And then if you want to show that you're good in something, you will easily invent something more, something more, and something more. So it's actually those procedures, in my opinion, are really the future of the construction field, because they simply make too much sense. It's okay, we have a contract, I have to deliver, you have to pay, but okay, that's okay. But normally, the contracts are done. You normally use contract only if you go to fight. If you don't need it if everything goes well. And so that is the wrong interpretation, that this should be kind of, conflict. And working this way, we actually are really very happy, and they are also happy with us. This was another question: how we will manage the construction site? Because actually, the first tender it's called DP03, this one. Then the second, and it was 65,000 square meters. Then these two buildings, which were additional 100,000 square meters, and then those 4 buildings, which are called clusters. But on each of those tendering, and then was another 4th one, which is the medical equipment inside, and we won all 4 of those. But basically, it could happen also differently. That, for example, we won this first one and this building here, and then some other construction company wins this, and this. So it was actually very challenging to make the construction site organization. Well, this construction site as organization, when it is only one company working on site, is not difficult, because it's pretty greenfield. There is a lot of space around, so space where you can stack the materials and so on, you have it. But if you try to imagine it as a separate construction site for each of those zones, think about accesses, think about interferences, it is really the mess. And of course, even if we won the first 2 tenders, when you do the 3rd one, you don't know if you will manage to win it or not. So however, you have to invent the solution, how you will manage construction site with the interferences with another company. So that was also challenging, and we did some exercise on that. Well, this is, let's say, the easier part, or if you want more standard one, it's always asked to show the organization chart, how many resources you will put, how your technical office will be organized, how your management office will be organized, and more or less each of these figures, then you need to show the CVs, the track record, the performance, and so on. And then this is the Danish style thing. So this is about organization of cooperation. How many times we meet, what kind of meetings we do, what about BIM coordination meetings and health and safety one, and the contract meetings and high management meetings and steering group meetings and whatever, and how we are monitoring progress, how we use BIM model to see how we can comment directly in the BIM models about the changes, and what about tracking of the progress inside, and can we have some virtual reality to go through to the rooms, and so this was a small slide. Also, this one is not one slide, it's many slides, how we replied to this. And this is actually what we did after. Some of those things we are still doing, as it was part of our technical offer in the tender. And this was economical one, and it was actually really interesting in this tender, because they asked to quote, the problem was this fitting in the budget. There was a basic quotation about works amount, but actually, you were not getting your points, these 25 economical points, you were not getting it by global quotation, but by quotation of one part of economical offer, which was general expenses, overheads, insurance, design fees, and markups. And another thing that is called Danish Winter Act, because there are some special provisions that you have to do, because if you have ceilings above your head in Denmark, you cannot work without at least 15 degrees, even in the winter. So you have to close the building even if it is open while doing construction, and you need some money to do that. But basically what they were asking, I want to know the cost of your management structure, of your design structure, of your lawyers, administration, and how much you want to earn, because the rest will be kind of open book, which actually it was. And it was really interesting, because they said, I like an idea about open book. I like to say, okay, I want to know how you will earn, how much you will earn, and the rest, if I want a better product, you will pay it more, and then you will put your markup. If I want a lower product, you will pay less and put your markup. But on the other side, this client says, I don't have a management structure to follow you for 5 years dealing with any subcontractors open book. So what we do? We made an optimization phase of 7 months. We do the open booking optimization stage. I put my management team, employer, on the table. You put me your best skilled engineers according to your organization chart and show me that you are managing this. We manage this in open book. Once we come, we finish with the guaranteeing maximum price, and then we pass to the lump sum procedure after optimization stage. Very smart. Very smart, because actually they were happy and we were happy, which is pretty rare. You know, there was no even one claim, one fight. Okay, you know, technical arguing and things like that. But it's really fantastic and other part, because this was so reasonable. It was so reasonable because they said, I want to know if you want to earn 5 points or you want to earn 15 points in such a tender. Tell me this. I want to know this nice technical structure that you presented me here with these guys and with the CVs of 25 years experience and with all this meeting and all this nice stuff that you promised. What is the cost of this one? I want to know it immediately. And how much you want to earn, and how you will manage the construction site, and how much this will cost. I don't care now how much the heating pumps will cost and facets, because I will ask you to bring me 3 offers and put it on the table. Basically, this is an idea. All of this was managed since that stage, but still by BIM models. So coming back to the systems of codifications, and we worked in CCS and the UBS here, because actually, the cost plan was made by a general contractor, so we were exporting different data, so different solutions, and it was really massive job, because we were modeling one solution, other extracting quantities, because everything in this optimization stage, which was really heavy, it was strange, because we were working like 70% day and night, and on the end of this process, we didn't have, like, to say, I don't have 10 finished floor printed like plans. It seems that we didn't produce nothing, because we were working on multiply solution, checking the costs and everything. But the good thing was that we managed to fit in the budget and sign the contract. And so we were doing different kind of models, and you will see after in one scheme, for example, in Odense, we came to over 400 different models if you split different buildings and different disciplines. We are talking here in all stages, preliminary, main, and shop drawings. All together, we produced 36,000 drawings. 36,000 drawings. We are 5 years now on this project, and so we first drafted the cost plan. They did split it first by different lots, and then the building inside of these lots, and then the work categories. And this was shared with the general contractor and shared with the client, and then. Meanwhile, we were modeling single discipline. We were extracting different quantities, typologies of asset, typologies of structures in the Excel sheets, and then during the same procedure, their procurement were asked to multiply offer and finding the unitary price to connect, to map the elements in the Revit and to export in Excel and to go for the price and to understand, okay, if you go with the cast in situ slabs, you will spend 12 millions. If you go with the prefabricated, you go for 9 million. They say check, okay, go for prefabricated, and then we confirm it in the model. Here we use PowerBird B that I told you, because this is actually pretty useful, nice for these checks. Do you have 800 different windows or not? So for rationalization of elements, number of the doors, internal windows, and it's also really allows you control, just to see door tags 21,000. Yeah, this is hospital with 21,000 doors. So every change you make, it's hell a lot of money, and the different kind of rooms, materials, and this is nice because it's also it's manageable. You can work it very fast with the models. So models, when you import, are not heavy for the presentation, and you can extract in pretty fast way. Let's say material that is pretty easy to be presented. You can, for example, divide it by typology of works, but in the same, for example, this one, as far as I remember, yes, those are ceilings. So we have, I don't know, 20 types of ceilings, and they're divided by 15 different rooms. 15 different buildings, and you have a quantity of each of them, and also the total one, and how many. And you can take out these graphs in pretty easy way. Another thing that is certainly worth of mentioning is a clash detection procedures, and well, many people are spending a lot of time talking about that, and usually it's pretty easy if you're not very skilled know about what you are talking about. Sometimes we do that if contracting authorities ask us, like, okay, launch the clash detection report and demonstrate that this project has problem, you know, and you have pretty much fine design, and you have like 35,000 clashes, because it's really not depends of global number, but you have to go deep in it, what kind of clashes are there. Because however you are modeling, you will have a lot of clashes that maybe results clash, but actually they are not let's say dangerous. So what we do in this matrix, this is a collision severity matrix, that we have different kind of disciplines and different kind of work. So an architecture, you will find the walls, suspending, shielding, payments, and so on. And here the same, and you will see which one of those are level of criticality low, C1, medium, C2, high, C3, because sometimes you will have, I don't know, the cable that is floating somewhere in suspending ceiling and touching suspending ceiling, and maybe he will detect the clash, but you don't have any problem with this clash. Or you maybe will have the, I don't know, the pavement that is simply lying down on the asterisk, how you call it, on the when you have the layers of the pavement, how you call it, the one asterisk in English, screed, yeah, screed. And you have these two layers touching, and it maybe detects you like a clash, and it is not. This is a classical example. Sometimes you will find this detected as a clash, because you're only touching between the door and the tray ball, which is not the clash. Or maybe even some of those when you have, normally we are all working with insulated pipes, and when you have this kind of small clash, that's why it's very important to be skilled in setting tolerances, because if you have 1 centimeter clash, you will basically have only 2 insulation levels that will push a little bit each other. It will not be a problem. On the other side, we have these kind of clashes which are the problem, or maybe the duct that are coming into the system. So it's really important when you get the table which is like this, and usually the problem of BIM world is that it is full of the people that are very skilled in using BIM, but they actually don't have any connection with the construction. And this is, one of your questions was very, very intelligent. What is the problem of CCI system or whatever coding system you use? The main problem is that you basically, you're not modeling everything. This is always the first problem. If you don't really want to go very detailed, sometimes we did it, but you usually, for example, you don't model steel in the concrete. And so there is no codification system that will extract the right quantity of this if you don't model it. So somebody, some quantity surveyor or whoever it is, needs to know that normally in foundations you will have 95 kilos of steel per cubic meter. In the pillars you will have 300. In the beams you will have 250. In slabs, whatever. To make the percentage incidence of the kilos, then you extract the quantities of the concrete. That has to be split in different families for the foundation, for the pillars, because the families has to be generated in different way, because somebody has to know that these different families will have different incidents of it. But normally, who knows all this, has 25 years of experience and don't know how to open the Revit, and don't know how to use the BIM. And who knows how to use the BIM does not have 25 experience. This is the main problem. And everybody are talking about tools, magic tools, you click and everything is finished. No, there are no magic tools, at least in my personal opinion. And I cannot tell for myself that I'm highly skilled in BIM. I understand pretty much about that, but I really not. But I understood that we put in our company, sitting together, one skilled engineer or quantity surveyor next to one young BIM crazy guy that knows to do everything. If you don't do this, you're fucked. You're certainly fucked. Sorry for the using French terms, but this is really the. But no, this was concrete was maybe the simplest example. I can make hundreds of these. What about how you say in English? When you cast concrete, you put the wood on the 2 sides. How you call this?
Forward.
Forward. You never model forward. Never. You can do it, but it is usually you don't do. Nobody do that. Still, you have to pay it. Some contractor will ask you, pay me this. So how can you extract this quantity from it? Or even easier. Let's go even easier. You will model the clay walls.
Then I have a question.
Of course.
How you find these clashes?
How we find it?
Yeah.
You have in the model so-called selection sets. So you, let me jump a few slides. Just to explain better this. Okay. For example, first of all, you have to choose now when we are talking about a big project, you have to choose the part of the project where you are working in. So for example, I want to see what is happening in Tower 75. Let's say that this building is Tower 75. Okay. So what you see here, it is those are the different disciplines. Not all of them are here, but this is the architecture. So you will have here facades, envelope, and so this is the landscape part with all the part of furniture, electrical, mechanical, structural, and this is underground services. Okay. So first question that you have to make: what clashes I want to seek? Because if you make clashes between structure and furniture, they are basically not relevant. Even if you find them, it means that you put this bin for mistake in the model and it is somehow partly overlapped with a pillar and it will detect a clash, but you will never have this clash. Nobody will put the wardrobe in the middle of the pillar. Okay, so first of all you ask yourself, okay, what I want to clash. Normally the most dangerous clashes are between structural and mechanical, sometimes between mechanical and mechanical, sometimes between mechanical and architectural, because electrical is usually not so, in terms of space management, is smaller, so you can more or less always, I'm not talking about technical rooms, I'm talking about corridors and normal rooms, you can easily, in more easy way, manage it. Because usually the holes smaller than 200, you're doing it directly in construction site. So you coordinate the holes, the bigger the construction site, because the smaller one, even if you order the slabs, they will not make the holes of 100 in the fabric. They will send you that, and then you will hole it in directly in the construction site. So let's imagine that you decided, I want to check the Tower 75 structural against the mechanical. Okay. You take this model, structural, and you take all this, because this is not actually one model. You can open it in one model, in the federated one model, but normally the problem of this model, which is very huge problem coming back on this model are not moving. Even if you have a very powerful computer, you turn it around, you will touch your mouse and wait for half an hour. So there is a lot of work to optimize the small models that are workable, and then you only do the clash check in the big models. So let's imagine that you take this model and take only structure. So you take only beams, slabs, and pillars of only Tower 75. Now you have very easygoing model. Very good. Then you go to mechanical. But mechanical is interesting story, and I will show you here. Mechanical, this is different zones of mechanical federated models. But here, mechanical, each of these is at least 5 models. 5. Ventilation, cold and hot water, cooling, sewerage. Here we are. This building has 45 models only for mechanical ventilation. So you can see here, those are part of the buildings, B70, B71, blah, blah, blah. I don't know how they are divided. And those are part of the under disciplines on mechanical. So hydraulic, sprinkler, water mist models, high pressure ventilation models. Okay, coming back to your question. Let's say you want to clash ventilation with the structure in the Tower 75. Then you select only the model of ventilation Tower 75, only the model of structure. You open those two models in so-called, I don't know, under federated model of those two, and you launch the clashes. And the software, coming back to the matrix, for this part of the building, and then you will have to repeat it for different parts and for different disciplines. This is endless job, actually. It will generate something like this. Actually, it will come out directly from the software without any work you have to do. It will come out with this. Anytime when it detects one geometrical element that is part of the family structure clashing with one geometrical element which is part of family mechanical ventilation both of building 75, he will make you a small photo like this and detect with ID of elements that are clashing, why they are clashing, how they are clashing. Problem of, let's say, young BIM guys is that they think that once this report is out, the work is over. And the problem is often even high-level managers that are powerful guys with the money and everything, only parameter that they are using is number of clashes that you have. But you really sometimes can have model with 5,000 clashes with no problem for realization and model with 15 clashes with enormous problem for realization. So the real work starts when the young BIM guy who puts this out pass this work to the, let's say, experienced guys who know how to read that. And who knows also to tell him what are real risks, what to clash with what. Because many of those, if you go and look at it, will be this cable that is passing down, or maybe, I don't know, you have an element which is in the storage system, you will have bathrooms that are going to the roof and taking aeration, okay? This element will be classified as mechanical and sewerage, okay? And then you have a hole in the slab and also in the insulation and also in hydro waterproofing, and all these holes will be detected like clash, but they are not clashes. It is the hole that you have to have in order to realize this thing in proper way. So this is basically the problem. It is actually the generation gap, the cultural difference between and the, because I really feel this in my company. The young people are really very smart. They can, I don't know how learn to use any new software in one day, a really incredible thing, but they don't want to read. They don't read. They don't, well, really, 1 of 10 is reading. They're not, I'm not saying that they're not able to read. They're maybe reading, but they're not thinking about, you sometimes ask them, and why are you doing this? They don't have a connection between this modeling stuff with actually the real construction needs. And this is really dangerous because it seems like almost like a video game. Therefore, when you have some skilled guy, then it really works much better. Because sometimes, you clash everything with everything. And of course, you come out with 286,000 clashes, and then you think, oh, maybe only because the day after you select all the suspending ceilings, you put them 3 centimeters lower, and then you have half of the clashes today, and then you feel like, now I'm the genius because I have 100,000 clashes less, and you actually didn't do nothing useful for the construction site. Normally, also the order of the clashes, you have to know what are the construction phases, where you are starting to build first, what are the biggest things, because if you have one cable to pass, okay, you will make the hole and you will pass the cable. But if you have a duct which is big that you and me can walk inside, and you have the concrete wall of 45 centimeters, if you have to make this hole, this will be the hell of the problem, because you will go with 2 workers and they will stay for 2 weeks to make this hole. But if you don't know it, then, I really think that this is the secret. That's why somebody made the question, is there a tool to put together a smart owner and blah, blah, blah. The tool is meeting. The tool is meeting and the people capable to speak. This is also really big problem. Communication skills are really big problem, because you can make very nice presentation like this, but only conclusion will be, oh, too many of those, we are fucked, or no one of those, everything okay. And this is actually not the right conclusion. So I think really we use many softwares, and normally you go to that meeting, Solibri is better than Dynamo, Dynamo is better than Baxter here and there, but basically if you know how to do this work, you will do it in any software. You will be maybe a little bit faster, a little bit lower, but you really, the thing that is missing, and even if you go to these courses where they teach you this stuff, they will I don't know, they will open OmniClass system and they will say, okay, categories are defined like this, then you put this fall in this category, but always without the final goal, why we do all this? Why we do it? Because, and if you don't know what you are doing, you have to start from the end. You have to start, what I'm doing with this, the data. Okay, I want to click on the end of the month and understand what is the progress of my work, because I have to go to my client and to say, this is the bill to pay. Or if it is general contractor, or differently, when you have the construction site like this one in Odense, on the end of the month, we are talking about last month it was 17 million of monthly progress of works. So they present an invoice of 70 million, and how you can check if these works are done or not? You know, you have 800 people working in the construction site. How can you check it? So this is the really question where you have to start from. Okay, how I check it? I will make 8 site managers that will be split in different buildings that they are going to check what is there and what is not there. Okay, how they will check it? Okay, they will go with the laptops. Very nice. You buy him a laptop with the tablet. Okay, and so what he's doing with the tablet, and normally this guy is not used to use a tablet, because if he needs to speak with workers there, this is, you know, an old guy who don't know to do that. And then you start really thinking, okay, let's make something user-friendly. For this Bexel is fantastic, because you actually can even select the elements. You go there and you see, okay, construction zone 21, the slab from the pillar line 49 to the pillar line 54, the slabs are there, and you select it in the model, you check, done. And when you check done, you go to quantity surveyor and he clicks X, and Excel file with all the quantities and prices are coming out, and you can invoice. For example, this is very useful, but you need always to know why you are mapping, because only if you know why you are doing that, then you will decide how to codify. Because, of course, some question I saw is, contracts usually gives you indications. For example, in Bisberg we had Omniclass as a must, like do that. In others it was CCS, client sites. Both contractors, they use their own VBS, so they give you the cost plan and they say adapt the codification there. So we basically do it double, one for the construction and one for the owner. But really, if you know why you need it, you can create it yourself without any problem. Actually, what we are now doing, and this was also another interesting question, we are creating so-called composed families. Yes, now, sorry for this digression, I stopped here, but just to jump to your question. First, you asked me if the different level of codification are different based on the level of design. Absolutely, yes. For example, normally in the preliminary, you have all the slab, for example, structure level and the screed and the payment and everything as one solid. Okay, so you have one quantity and one code and for this, because you don't have time, you're in preliminary level, you haven't designed everything. When you go to the main design, maybe this becomes 12 different levels, because you have a ceiling and you have a payment and you have a screed and you have everything. And each of these systems are modeled separately, with the possibility to be extracted separately, with possibility to be clashed separately, of course codified separately, with a separate price, with a separate time, because the question is always this: if I manage something that will be built in the same time, will be put in place with the same cost, of course I don't need to cut it in different categories. If I have the structural slab that is built in February 2022 and then the screed on it that will be put 1 year after, of course the two elements will have to be separately modeled and separately codified, also because they will be populated with different geometrical, non-geometrical data, thermal, acoustic performance, specific weight, whatever. They will be clashed with a different system. They will have a different cost. They will have a different time. They are different. But you know, it's just thinking about that and understanding. So what we are now implementing, we are working on this so-called composed families. So if the green roof has 25 layers in the shop drawings model, we make it as a 2-layer to be fast. But we go on our experience data bank and say, okay, this is a typical green roof system. So to do that, we need a slab, screed, green roof, and insulation, and thermal insulation, hydric insulation, and some accessories, and here and there. Altogether, 250 euros per meters. Okay, very good. Put it in this composed element. Why? So I can, at preliminary level, do pretty fast models and have at least approximate first cash control, how much will be the cost of without losing too much time. Everything is about this, because The problem is that, turning back to the system of cooperation, you always have to put together the client, the investor, the user, the designer, the constructor, and everybody here. Constructor will talk only about the buildability and speeding up the process. Designer will talk about the nicest thing to do and blah, blah. Owner want to save money and still want to have it very fast and so on. And so everybody will have their own requirements. If you do too much work without giving reply, but if you want to do it technically correct, when in preliminary stage, client asks you how much I will spend, the only right answer will be, I don't know. Because you don't know. This is the truth. Normally, I tell, I don't know, but I will make possibly together with you, the system, that I will be so skilled in communication sense of speaking to explain you, so you will share the way of how I created this system, and not only the way how I created it, you will share also responsibility, because on the end of the day, the money is yours. And then we will implement this system, and I will present you the result. And in this system, I will also tell you that there is a margin of mistake that is pretty high in the beginning, and meanwhile we are going with the detailing of design is becoming lower and lower. This is a fair way of working. This is the only way of working. But the problem is really, my real advice, if you want a really good BIM team for whatever, for quantifications of the cost, for control of the time, for facility management, for operation, if you want, you need some skilled BIM guys, somebody who really did this work, somebody who go there and counts, otherwise no, and somebody who is able to present the results of all this. Okay, maybe I'm the third one in this story. But if you don't have these two guys together, be sure that you will just do presentation, and then when you end the day, then you miss cases. Okay, is it mine? Okay. Okay, let's move to. Of course, if you have really any question, please stop me, and I'm sometimes talking too fast. But now let's move to Switzerland. Here in Geneva, it's the main headquarters of United Nations building. Very important tender. I'm really proud that we are working. Actually, first time when I entered there, it was really, oh, it's impossible. Yeah, like I'm 35 years and I'm working on it. I was 35 years, I'm 38 now. But it was really a great pleasure of being involved there. We were 11 on the first pre-qualification. Then after some very rough level of the first one, 4 were eliminated, and we stayed in 7 in this pre-qualification. And we had a tender with really very specific technical requirements, mostly because the building is existing, and they are really insisting very much on so-called business continuity, because for the, of course, this is United Nations, you know, so for the higher political level, you cannot stop some of the running of some of the parts of this, and in the meantime, you have to do global refurbishment. And they're fantastic because they have their own laws there. They have all regulations. They're like a country itself in this compound. And so we went there on this tender, which was also 6 or 7 months, like with 11 intermediate meetings with many models, many technical considerations, and so on. And it was extremely complex because, for example, since the tender stage, the separate packages were asked to be priced, and they were actually be compared and evaluated. So not only the global price, but also the single packages. And the technical evaluation was really, really difficult because they were, of course, asking the similar reference, the track record, and so on. But the ways how you will manage the specific needs of construction site that you will see in the following slides, which were really challenging. For example, they had some asbestos material, so we were going there to have a survey to see where, how, and to provide the systems in the tender stage of the clean rooms and how the different level of workers will go, what kind of suit they have to put, how they can hygienize themselves, and how this material can be bring out. And this was actually asked because they were openly telling, okay, you are the designer and the contractor that has this kind of experience. Please tell us, because we don't know how to manage this thing with, as a health and safety. The same was with some strip-out perks, because they say, okay, I want to reduce as much as possible acoustic impact, I want to make as much also aesthetic impact to the facade, so where I enter for each floor, how I bring out material, so we were making these schemes floor by floor, how we are working and how we are taking out the materials. This is something that is also related to many of your questions. They have their own facility management and data management system, which is also very interesting. And for example, we did, this was first part there, once we won the tender, it was 12 months of pre-construction phase. And pre-construction phase has as a main goal establishing of GMP, guaranteed maximum price. So in the tender stage, we were pricing design services and construction services. And there was a lot of allowances, a lot of risks, because you basically, wherever you go, you find the new things because it is existing building. So those allowances were pretty high in the tender stage, and the goal of this 12 months was do all the exercise, surveys, procurement, design stuff, and so on and so on and so on, to reduce it and to say, this is the maximum price and I will not go over it. If you go over, it's contractor risk, so contractor pays. If you match it, it's okay. If you go lower, incentive methods, and you get some money of the savings that you obtain. Very nice procedure. Coming back to, so first one, it was conditional surveys. So we were going and uploading this to Dalix platform and also to Archibus platform that they are using internally. We did all the inventory check. Every piece of furniture or of heritage, it was codified. It was with a system that we agreed together with them, because, of course, before doing the works, you have to bring them out, but very, very small part of this they are throwing away. All the rest, we built 1,250 square meters facility, temporary facility in the construction site as a stock for all these things. But it's stock that is like a higher cost than normal building, because it's controlled temperature, controlled humidity, because we're talking about art with an estimate value that will be put there. Meanwhile, the works are finished. So room by room, all geo-references, we did this kind of service for all 11 buildings. And then another thing, we are very skilled in laser scan. We have free laser scan in our property. The biggest one is like 100,000 euro, like machine with one click is surveying everything, and pretty high level. And the problem of this design is they didn't have enough time for building design, and it was written in the tender documentation. It was done by ICOM and SOM, big American companies, and it was written that total design was done without any surveys based on all the drawings that were delivered to the designer. And it was a total mess. It was a total mess. Because, especially in my opinion, what we were doing, we were going with laser scan in all the rooms. We were opening sometimes, because there are many types of laser scanning. You have the ball one that you have all the rooms and you can navigate. You have for the suspending ceilings the one that you put it in your backpack and you go and see this. You have the big plant rooms that are so problematic that or they don't have the suspending ceiling, or you have to remove it. So somebody or some workers go remove it and then you survey. We do this cloud points for 780 room or something like that, only in the first stage, and 780 room were only the most critical. Taking it, putting in our BIM models and modeling it. Then we take the model that was delivered to us by designer, we put it together, and then we cried. And it was total disaster. Because think about designer input. They say, okay, this room, and this room, you have to guarantee business continuity. So there is no works in terms of finishes in those rooms, but still you are changing the ventilation system, the heating system, and the cooling system, and you're connecting this to the cooling pumps, the heat pump. So the business continuity was the most difficult topic of this design. So we were providing design of provisional air handling units and heating pumps in the garden, in the middle, around the building, to deliver this possibility. But some of the ducts, in order to and the pipes for hot and cold water, in order to guarantee this building business continuity, cannot be removed. So we surveyed them, and then we pipe by pipe, duct by duct, we were codified as one to be demolished and one that cannot be demolished in order to guarantee the business continuity. Then we turned out from the model the one not to be demolished, and we overlapped it with the project, and it was full of clashes, totally full of clashes, but not like clashes that to resolve it you have to go down for half a meter. Then you take your suspending ceiling, you go down for half a meter, and then your room is 250. And there is a law that cannot be lower than 280. And then you cry. And then you go to the meeting and find a solution. So, and it was enormous work. And we never had even an idea that it will be so big. And lucky enough, they were, let's say, good in relation to us to understand that this work was not possible to be predicted. So they also help us economically speaking. So we did it and we finished it, but it was really the mess. And so some parts, thanks to the efficient procurement of this firstly estimated maximum price, were reduced. Others were even increased because of the things that we discovered by this laser scan survey that we provided. This is what I was talking about before. So every chair, every table, every item, everything to say, everything was codified according to the location where it is, what kind of quantity description, what kind of model typology. All this was managed in system, and all these activities were conducted by our directly on-site team. In a certain moment, I had 16 people working around on surveying everything. Then, coming back to business continuity, it was, for example, in the facade system, they wanted to remove the old shading system and to put some pelliculas on the glass to reduce the quantity of sun entering. But we are talking about some of those pieces of glasses were 12 meters high, and you had to do this work with all the communication inside permanently ongoing. So we put this double scaffolding inside and outside, making the provisional walls in order to keep part of corridor used for users inside and another part for doing works. And everything was about that, how to manage work without creating the big mess and the big interest. For example, this scheme, just to have an idea how many buildings we are talking about. So those are 11 buildings. Different buildings are different stages, and in some parts you have a really big mess because you have many buildings overlapping together. But in all this time, you have the people that are coming to their work, some of them by foot, some of them in bicycle, some of them by car, and you have also the workers and the camions for the construction site that are coming. And all this around here in the compound has to be managed. So the schemes like you have, like 2 or 3 that you see here, we have developed 56 of those by movers and by control of traffic, how we will manage to reduce interferences as much as possible of construction site traffic and the people that are working in United Nations. And this was what I was telling you about before. So price was split in different working categories, but on the same side we had, of course, overheads and profit as a separate amount, and the risk and the GMP allowance. So this is the allowance to go to this guarantee maximum price, and then contractor adjustment to risk and GMP allowance. So you had this, this was the formula. So the lowest bidder, the lowest price was getting the maximum points. It was split a bit by the price of each single bidders and multiply for the maximum price point. This is how the score was calculated, but it was scored to win the tender. And this price was still not the final one, because the final one was decided and confirmed after 12 months after the pre-construction period, as it was the part of the tender settled like this. And also here, the ONO, of course, covering all the expenses during this year, they preserve the possibility that if they don't meet the goals in terms of finance that they wanted to meet, they can tell you bye-bye and go for another goal. Of course, it almost never happens because you lose 1 year, and 1 year for them is much more money than whatever kind of offers you can. But normally, theoretically, they have right to do that. Okay, so we are back in Denmark. This is the Pittsburgh hospital. I showed you part of this. How much time do we have? Okay. I showed you part of this presentation before. This is design and build contract, yellow book FIDIC. FIDIC, there was a preliminary design on the tender. However, they asked to redo the preliminary design once again to solve some problems and also to undertake responsibility as a contractor. In terms of points, it was 25% on the price, and you will see the interesting formula that is for price calculation, at 75% of different other things like process and methods and quality management and organization and stuff. The particularity of this complex, we are talking about a little bit more than 80,000 square meters hospital, 230 million tender to be built in 2 different stages, because basically we are building this large block. It's about 50,000 square meters. This is currently ongoing in the construction site. There is this building 7, which is the part of the existing hospital. Actually, we are working inside of existing hospital complex of Pittsburgh, which is maybe the biggest one in Copenhagen. Then once this building is finished, it has to be, even if partial, closed, handover, and the people who are working in this building has to pass here, because then the demolition of building 7 is predicted, and then finally you build the last 25,000 square meters with car park, with some landscape, and the southern part of the hospital. So actually, the stages and the phasing are really very, very difficult in this project. They ask a lot about how we will manage approval process and, let's say, cooperation with the clients during the design stage and also during the construction stage. For example, it's pretty classical as a scheme, but so once the design is submitted, it can be rather approved or approved with notes, which allows you possibility to go for the construction site, even if you have to update the notes, or it can be, of course, revised and resubmit, so it's status C, and then you have to revise it. It's basically the same they need to do with in the construction site, and they're really, they are pretty heavy about that. They have an AROP as a special consultant for that on this, and everything that is built even like 5 centimeters different than it was predicted in design, you're making so-called unconformity report. Then you go for similar procedure. Also, during construction it can be accepted. If it is not accepted, you have to recheck and maybe to even to redo some work. So this was the procedure and how we explains in the tender stage how we will cooperate. This is actually how we are now working. And there is they asked for some notes about the commissioning process, and so we actually in our model also the data is necessary for testing and commissioning. So all the data sheet, all the maintenance manuals and everything are mapped in the model. This process is still not finished completely, because actually it cannot be finished before having all the subcontractors on the board, because normally it's a map subcontractor that will do the running and commissioning of the systems. So usually, not usually, always in the public tenders, designer never indicates the specific product, or maybe I can say, okay, this will be the product or similar, but you can never fix, you have to buy this because it should be against the law. So that's why, because I saw some question about this, this population of operation and maintenance data is almost always done in the final stage after having all the subcontractors on the board. I'm not talking about finishes, because finishes sometimes you really can just take the sheet of the paintings or of the pavement or whatever, but for the map you really need subcontractors, otherwise you're not able to do that, because for example, we finished this in a data center in Bologna, and not only scorecards and sheets, data sheets of each and every element, but also the manuals for the maintenance done by subcontractors are linked to the model. And actually, when we deliver the model, we have in courses, we have 6 or 7 lessons of 1 morning each, like 4 hours per 5 times, 20 hours, 24 hours globally of lessons working together on our models with the employer. We work directly for employer. It's a data center of 45 million. It's the biggest one of the biggest data center in Italy for climatic data, and it is something most complex that you can imagine in terms of of mechanical and electrical installations. And we delivered it like 6 months ago, these courses. And so we were working together with the contract authority on our models so that their maintenance team can take it over and keep working and use it in the future stage.
Sorry, how did you hand over the models? In which format, or was it a database, or?
During the development of design, we were sharing every 2 weeks CFC. On the end, we give also the Revit files because it was part of the contract, and also all the folders treated by discipline, other discipline, and buildings with all the data that were populated were actually delivered in Excel format in different folders with the dates and the models. So we actually take our server and give it to them because it was the deal in this case. Sometimes when we want to, let's say, sell after handover services, then we keep it for us and then we sell our time for doing it. But usually it's not our core business.
And then I've seen models that had links to specific files and folders integrated.
Absolutely, yeah. And here, this is the system that we agreed at the stages we are now working in and working on. This is really interesting and managing Dalux platform here in Builder for differential equipment. So everything is coded, and with this app, it is basically it will be pretty much user-oriented. It will be used by doctors, medical staff, and also the operation and maintenance team. Basically, you can go around the hospital and touch whatever you want and get all the data sheet directly with the app on your cell phone, because it will be inside in this QR code, which will be linked with all the data that we have in the model, and you can read it directly. So it's really user-friendly. And this will be one of the most advanced systems. If you think that one operating theater like this one can have inside something like 200 different pieces, it is really a lot of information. Normally this start, at least in Denmark, everybody uses Rofus as a data bank. I don't know if it is also used here in the hospital sector. It's so much used. So our work in the beginning, we get some layouts, which are pretty much not developed. We get some so-called project bases, so we have a tender information with the specific requirements, and we get the Rofus file. And our first job, which is hell a lot of long, is to populate our Revit models with these 3 kind of inputs and match them if they are matching or not. And very often they are not matching. For example, in the office, you have everything. You have the size of the room, the size of the window, typology of the door, kind of finishes, what kind of equipment you have, what kind of order, everything. But it's like a complex Excel sheet. It's not Excel, but on the end, it's a database. You take this, and maybe you have 24 square meters room with 8 square meters of the windows in the office, but in layout it is 21 square meters with 2 meters of the roof. Or maybe it is written, I want linoleum on the pavement, and then you go there and read the technical basis, project basis, and it's written on the boards you can use only ceramic tiles. And you say, oh, no, it's linoleum, and then you're playing with tracing difference. And usually, once you're populating this data in the models, you understand if there are differences, and then you provide, normally we did it in Excel sheet, like checked yes, no, 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 and then go to the client. If they are not matching, which one I have to follow, because not always, also this not always is clear. So this data management is a really big work, especially in the initial phase. We always suffer it in the initial phase. Also here, when we started with Tallinn, we have this to understand what are inputs for the client, what are inputs from the user, what are, because once you have clear what you have to do, you just do it. It's much simpler, but this process is pretty exhausting, and you're trying to match all these dates, and that's why I actually prefer the more advanced stages of design, detailed design, and I prefer. Well, we normally when we do the design, we do all the stages and all the disciplines. Last 7 years we worked only like this. We never work with other. Yes, we have some support to do, but we never work like I do electrical, you do mechanical, I do structural, you do architecture. We are not capable to do that. Not because we think that we are the best in the world, but we have our systems, and it's also pretty difficult to coordinate between ourselves. When you will have to coordinate with many other people, it always gets a bigger mess. But this first stage is always suffering. Sorry.
How do you include this data to model? This classification.
Yes. Well, you have selecting each element. You have it's like I don't know if I have it here in the presentation. No, I don't have it here. It's like an Excel sheet. You simply say, okay, location, floor number 4, department cardiology, building 72. Then you have, I don't know, acoustic performance, okay, 72 decibel. Then you have thermal transmittance, 0.2 watt.
Does it exist in models?
Sorry, that
Does it exist in model also?
does exist.
In the model.
In model also?
Yes. When you, for example, if you go to the Bisberg model and you select the wall will give you, as you can open the sheet and it will give you which kind of building is part of this wall, which floor we are talking about, in which time it will be built, what is the thermal transmittance, what is the acoustic performance, what is permeability to the wind, what is permeability to the water, all the technical sheets. And even if you have, for example, technical sheet, so who is producer that will be delivering this, then you have also the producer. So all these data are collected. Let's say the geometry is smaller part of the work. The bigger part of the work is non-geometrical data population.
You define the attributes there, what you want.
I mean that can you use in budget also this data?
Of course, you can, according to how you make your codification system, that normally CCI, CCS, normally they are starting by working categories. Then you always implement, you don't have to do that, but usually you are asked to do that, to implement some UBS that give you geolocalization. So where are you, in which building, in which floor, in which time frame, where are you? And this is always required because you're not required only to give them the global budget, but also how much I'm delivering this month, this year, in this stage, and whatever. And then you map it also with the unitary price, if you have it from the construction company, or you did the inverse procedure. You take out, you make the so-called QTO, quantity take-off, according to the codification system that you put, and then you have a line where the quantity surveyor insert the price. So you can do it both of the ways. Or you get unitary price. You get 1 square meters of the clay wall of 50 centimeters inside. It costs 55 euros square meters built. Okay, you put it in the model, and you know that this element costs 55 euros for a square meter, and then you call your model. Okay, how many clay walls I have on the 4th floor, building 72, of thickness 15, 2,000 square meters. Very good, 110,000 euro, and you get the price. You can do that. We are always doing that, and you can do it we are doing it in Excel Manager, which is maybe most user-friendly for do that.
And this output is in Excel or where?
Yes, all the softwares, whether you use Dynamo, Solibri, Excel, they are all luckily enough related to Excel. So usually, yes, somehow you always pass to Excel, or in getting data to the model, or extracting data from the model, or both, usually both. But Excel, more or less any database is connectable with Excel. It's most universal format.
Good question regarding the classification as well. Do you do the classification while you do the modeling or after the modeling, or do you already have the classification in the templates and the families that you're using when you're modeling?
We have some of them. This one we are finalizing now. We are using even for the design competition this complex family that I told you for the preliminary estimates of the cost. for the more complex project, usually we actually start implementing system that is system of the general contractors that we are working with. We usually get the cost plan. We almost always get it in Excel. So in this cost plan, most of them are going as a level splitting by working categories. So I don't know, earthworks, foundations, prefabricated structure, internal walls, suspending ceiling, families of the works. Of course, first macro family will be discipline, architecture, structure, mechanical, and electrical. Then you will be there. And then you have the collocation building by building that you usually put as a higher level than the works. We get this cost plan and we create the codification according to the cost plan. So we can, without any problems, do it, let's say, by ourselves or by your specific needs or by any system that we use. And even if the system is for example, in Bisberg here, they said use the OmniClass. It's too general as a rule. Still, you have to personalize it to yourself. I have some presentation, maybe Stanimir can show something. From there, from saying using OmniClass to say what we want to do, and this could be, if you're interested in this classification system, this could be object of maybe another meeting. We made a 50 slides presentation of how actually we want to apply it to our project. So what is information that we need from our side as the designers and other that construction needs to complete, of course, respecting what are the general rules of OmniClass system. And also those rules are changing from project phase to project phase because the model are getting more details, changing their, let's say, further development.
I'm just wondering if you've done projects in CCS. Is it good for you that you can reuse this knowledge already in the next project? Like, for example, in the Tallinna Hospital?
Absolutely.
Because you already have some work done.
Let me say that if we want to, for example, if tomorrow we want to suggest to use the CCS of Tallinna Hospital, I can really fastly use the material that I already have from models and say, okay, let's work like this. What we usually trying to avoid to do that because we always want to implement something else, something more to make it, because we know that this system, however good it was on the beginning, creates some problems that could be optimized. So every new time we are adding something more. But it's absolutely like you're saying, you are starting for the base that you created in the previous experience, and then you are upgrading to something more in every new one.
We have 10 more minutes. Are you going to take the questions separately or?
However you want. I think we are more or less on the end. We can pass through. Let me just explain this one for the price. It's very short, and then we'll see, because most of the questions I think that I touched them.
Yes.
So this was the pricing awarding system in Bisberg, which was very interesting because they had a target price. They said, this is my target price, because sometimes in tender you actually don't have price. You have just the tasks to price. Here there was a target price. They said, okay, if you manage to be under the target price, which gives you 7 out of 10 points, that then becomes 25 by simply bringing them in proportion. If you go lower, up to minus 20%, you will get the maximum 10 points. If you go higher, you can go up to the 0 point with plus 20% above the target price, which was the end of the old tender, because the target price was pretty low, so everybody were basically close to the maximum price. But anyway, you get 0 points, and if you go higher than plus 20%, you're out. You cannot submit the competition. So they didn't give total freedom. Well, it's pretty much freedom, because when you have plus minus 20% frame, it's very big, because it's very related to the size of tender. Usually, if you have 10 million tender, the small one to do, you will find a gap of 30% between the lowest and the highest offer, because companies are too small. So it's enough that one company does not have enough work, he will make too aggressive offer, or maybe they are not capable to do the right calculation, so they actually make the mistake or so. When it's up to big tender, usually having 20% gap between lowest and highest offer, it's very high. When we are talking about 200-300 million, it's really pretty high. So they make a pretty big gap, but then in here the tender is finished pretty high. Okay, those are what you already see. This is some of the flows. It's designer general workflow with the contractor, and this one is with the subcontractors in here before going to the construction site. This is that I showed you before, the different disciplines and different parts of the model. Here we are with the mechanical with 45 models that I showed you before. And this is the last one, the Luxembourg one, 200 millions, very concentrated on the organization of the construction site and reducing impact to the external buildings that are with here. This is the last one that we won like 4 or 5 months ago. And very interesting with the models here, extremely advanced BIM model that we received in the tender stage. And they ask actually implementation of BRIM criteria, which is a sustainability quality system like LEED. And every and each parameter is supposed to be implemented as model characteristic. So it was a particular requirement of this tender. Of course, many points to the risk matrix and to detailing of all the possible risks that are coming out. Really very concentrating on the BIM and the different CVs and background of different discipline BIM leader, and global monitoring of the whole process, not only during the design, but also the procurement and handover stage. And price was basically the sum of the basic scope, some additional works because they wanted as a possibility, and the COVID, some allowances for the COVID, and the formula was minimum price divided with the tender price. And actually, in this tender, the price was 80% and quality was 20%. So actually, they were pushing much more on the price, but it was really very detailed developed. And more design is developed, less point you can put on the quality and more put on the price, because when you have this price between price, so it is not discount split by discount, but price between price. And in tender like this, between highest and the lowest offer, you will not have more than 8-9% of difference. So everybody of these 80 points will be actually pretty close, and the difference will be actually made with the quality score, even if it is lower, because the bill of quantities is very well defined, so you cannot have this big gap with the price. So this is everything. I hope that I managed to do as fast as possible. I don't know if I covered.
You can start, Kaia, maybe because your question was there, but we have four bigger blocks. I don't think that we can ask you all these 20 questions, but at least maybe a couple of each blocks, maybe.
Listen,
I go with my own interest first.
Okay. Because
that was not too much touched in your presentation. So from the facilities management point of view, do you have those specialists by yourself in your company? And at what stage do you involve them?
Okay, we were working with the MIP subcontractors in different contracts. For example, in Odense we are doing this, and we will do this in Bisper. We are already engaged, even if we haven't started. And we finished it in data center and many other projects in Italy. We are not doing ourselves like any assistance to operation management. We are just working on the models as a designer, as a construction manager. So we have so the procedure is normally, we have these elements modeled in our model. We choose some products and the sheets and data sheets, and always write or similar and populate the model like this. Once the subcontractors are on the board, usually we get most of our design involvements ended up that they engage us to do also the as-built model, and so the follow-up construction manager up to the end of the day. So whatever was our first idea about products and systems that were populated in the model, sometimes they ask, sometimes they don't. We updated according to what was really built and put on the place. Then for the MIP, at least in Italy, where we did most of those works, but also in Denmark, the map subcontractors are obliged by their contract to deliver the operation and maintenance manuals for each and every item. And of course, we work with them also on design to have a right space to go around, have a Unix heating pump and so on. So also the manuals, we directly connect them in the model to the technical rooms, to the main plant rooms, to the main elements and so on. Then our job normally finished with delivery of as-built model already populated to be ready for be used in operation and maintenance stage, and with some courses that luckily enough I'm not doing, but somebody more skilled than me, to the authorities or to facility management department that will follow this part. And normally it's from 10 to 30 hours of workshops. First 8 hours are lessons, like this one, presentations, let's say, and the other 20 hours are actually working together on the model. And then, for example, in this data center, which is particularly complex, we agreed about, if I don't remember well, a package of 120 hours a year of our assistance. So if they have some problem with us, they can call us and they pay us on an hourly basis, and we do this. But basically, we are not doing actually like, we are not acting like facility management of assets. Generally, we are not doing this as a services. We are working on models connected with facility management when it is our design and our construction management. If not, it's not that like you call us and I have this 20 building of my property, can you help me with facility management? This is not what we do. When it is related with design, we do also on them phase as a populating model. However, we let's say we could do it. We have the skills to do it in terms of BIM, but it's not our core business. We want to be designers. And of course, now design is always more and more complex.
Do you deliver the maintenance manuals always as PDFs or also as a database or a Kobe spreadsheet?
For the moment, the one that we delivered ourselves were annexes to design manuals for architecture finishes and were the PDFs, like the list of the rules to follow. For the from the map supplier, it was always get as PDF files, not for the moment, not as a database. It would not be. I don't think that it would be difficult to transform it, but for the moment, it was only PDF, connected in the model, of course.
How often or to what extent do you have the asset management requirements defined in your initial task or initial requirements when you get the project?
Not pretty defined in our task. Usually they defined during the, not even to the design stage, usually during the construction stage. It's let's say, pretty uncommon for designer, but we usually do it. I don't know why, but we like it to stay also to, let's say, prolong the services during the construction stage. But we like to work from the first day to the handover of the building. And normally the client actually understood better these aspects during the process. For example, in hospitals, they ask us to, on the end of the day, every time they give us this office file, which is kind of yes, database management for everything, for medical equipment, for use, for finishes, for all the requires. They give us that as input in order to develop our design and our models. But then 2 years after, they ask us, please, can you turn back to my dear office and re-update it according to your Revit file? It always ends up like this, because I have some users that I used to do that like this. Then operation and maintenance department, they usually come to this, let's say, teaching courses, and they use directly our models. And there is, let's say, a design department that they're really skilled, so they are working on the daily basis with the models with us during all the design stage.
So and the management then comes actually, the management team starts to work with you when you are commissioning?
Not so late, even before, but let's say on the end of design and the beginning of, not beginning of the construction, but let's say, I don't know, in Odense we started after 1.5 years since the beginning of construction to populate the ROFOs, to understand how we will manage the model, to make the guidelines for using of fast-built models for operation and maintenance. It started after more or less 2 years after the beginning of construction.
So are we having more time?
No, let's have a few minutes. Maybe we can have a written form as well as answers. Yes, you have prepared something.
If somebody wants to ask about coding and modeling at the design stage, budgeting and construction costs, software experience, machine capability, if somebody has some special questions.
Who will put the codes? Each designer themselves, or do you have a specialist there?
We always do it ourselves, but not designer discipline either. We are organized like this. We have a different team for different discipline. So architecture, which is basically divided in 3 pieces. Building envelope, in all inside architecture finishes and the landscape. Then we have mechanical, which is divided in all the different under disciplines, heating, cooling, ventilation, and then electrical, and then structural, and then BIM team, and then coordination. So BIM team with coordination, which is part of the BIM team. So in our company, the codifications for all the disciplines are always done by BIM team. Of course, according to what I was telling before, with the more experienced guys, they are not doing this on themselves, but they are working together with the discipline leader of the single guys. But in our company, we have, for example, they are all together 17 people in let's say BIM department that are actually not part of any discipline. They are only doing BIM. So the tasks that they are doing are codification of the models, population of non-geometrical data, optimization of the size of the models in order to have them manageable, clash detection, interdisciplinary coordination, full stop. More or less, this is what they do. So they are not actually doing any design choices. They are not putting into place any sheets, any details, any technical descriptions. They are doing only BIM stuff. And normally for the project, let's say, we're actually working, we are always more and more trying, but we are working in very high complexity project because we are doing hospitals. Hospitals are the most complex buildings that you can build. And usually average size becomes like the Tallinn one, 150,000 square meters. So we have not so many projects in terms of number, but altogether we developed 17 hospitals in 11 years of work. But they are very big, and normally when you start it lasts 3 years. And normally in a project like this, the BIM team will be 7-8 persons. Permanently there, serving all the other disciplines. And I'm counting that those, let's say, old skilled guys are sitting in other teams in architecture, mechanical, and technical. It's a BIM team. So to have idea of how many staff you need for a complex project.
Okay, then we can finalize. We have, I think, 5-minute break, and then we can gather downstairs and go for a walk. Hopefully the rain stopped. So kui kellelgi on vaja ennast värskendada, siis tualetid on nurga taga, eks ju, ma arvan, ja siis saame alguses.
Lindistuse ka seisma.
Ja kohe panen. Aitäh meelde tulemast, aga kohe panen. Sinu ma ei taha sellest päeva.
Sa tead, meil saab näidata, kui oluline, kas on sama asja, mida me oleme näinud.
Ma arvan, et äkki me saame minditesse väiksematesse ruumidesse, kus ei ole mitte suures, vaid mul ei ole ainult. Ma ei tea, et ta on.
Kui on külm päikse, ma mõtlen, et seda mõtlen. Helemai. kas sa teed meil niisuguse üldise käigu või lähed detailidesse ka seal?
Ma arvan, ma teen natuke üldisema, sellepärast, et meil on vähe aega.
Okei, siis kui me oleme betoonipäeval olnud, siis me ega mida rohkem ei näe.
Aga te sa mõtled, et probleemid kõrvalmuudest ära. Vabandan, ma viskan teid kõigi välja, nägemist.